A lot of parents have their kids all day and all night at the moment, and I'm getting many questions around discipline. The first thing I would like parents to keep in mind is this, that your mental, physical, and emotional well-being, as well as that of your child's, is much more important than any academic learning or having a tidy bedroom. Please place connection with your child above all else, above content, above cleanliness of bedrooms. Today I'm going to discuss 3 parenting styles: positive or authoritative parenting, which is the most preferred style for us to use most of the times. The other 2 are authoritarian or strict parenting, and the third is permissive parenting. If we live unconsciously and in autopilot, especially at this time, we will follow the patterns that we ourselves learned during our own childhood. These include adopting our parents' style of parenting us. If this has been a helpful style for you and your parents, and is helpful for you and your child, that is great. For many parents, the way they were being raised is being modeled by them unconsciously though, and may not be serving them or their child. If you have grown up in a home where a punitive style of discipline was used, and spanking, hitting, yelling, or shaming was a normal way of parenting, it may be a challenge for you to use more positive parenting techniques, as you yourself have not experienced these techniques. We need to go through a process of discovering where we came from and what we experienced, and because of the experiences, who we became and what learned behaviors we have adopted, and then think deeply about who we want to be as parents. It is great if you're hearing this information, as the first step to changing any behavior or your parenting style is simple awareness of what your existing style is. If you are aware and can consciously work on changing this, you will not only positively heal your own inner wounded child if you have one, but you will also circumvent a hurtful parenting style for generations to come. So here is how to rewrite your family script, and an ideal time to do so, as we are all experiencing challenges parenting our kids at this time. As I mentioned, the first step is awareness. If our default unconscious position involves shouting or any transactional punitive ways of communication, do it because I said so. Go to your room and no television for you today. Why have you not completed your homework? The transactional approach is mostly reactionary rather than mindfully responsive. A more transformational approach and a more positive approach asks us to firstly bring into awareness of where our child is developmentally, and then asks us to ask ourselves, what does my child need? How can I help? Rather than, how can I get my child to do what he or she is told? And then we respond to this in a way that keeps our child's need and fragile emotional state at the center of our response. This approach works with our children rather than does things to our children, and acknowledges the limitations and needs our children have developmentally. Most reactions that we have as parents will amount to punishment or reward. And this is not helpful for a whole number of reasons. Punishment is not a good motivator for intrinsically motivated good behavior. Look at how we behave because school and society has actually used reward and punishment as ways of ensuring compliance. And this has happened to us from when we were very young. When this is what we are used to, we tend to comply either for a reward, which can simply be acceptance and love, or out of fear of the punishment. The first has the tendency to have us take on the role of a pleaser. This means that we take on what is socially acceptable and what people around demand of us, often at the cost of what we need for ourselves. Another role we can take on and pass on to our children is clingy, needy attachment behavior. If the giving and withdrawal of love was used as reward and punishment when we were young. Children who grow up not feeling securely attached also tend to not be as confident or socially competent. Adults who have been abused emotionally or physically very often take on either the role of a victim or that of a bully if they are trying to compensate for the lack of control over their own lives, or because it teaches us that using power over those that are weaker is a way to get what we want or what we need. This does not necessarily mean that this is authentically who we are. We and our children will act out our lives in accordance with a script, and we follow this script based on how we have been conditioned to believe that this role is supposed to be played. We do things for extrinsic reasons instead of internal or intrinsic reasons, and this is neither healthy nor constant. If the extrinsic reason, the fear or the reward, is not present, the behavior does not last. Punishment and reward does not allow true moral development to occur, as the receiver of this sort of discipline asks the question, what do I need to do to gain love, approval, or reward? Or what do I not need to do to avoid punishment? Instead of what leads to conscious individuals who ask, what kind of person do I want to be? Or when I ask kids to ask themselves, what kind of me do I want to be? The best style of positive parenting is what we call authoritarian parenting, which is not to be confused as authoritative parenting or permissive parenting. Positive parenting mixes discipline and respect so that children have no ambiguity about how to behave. This style of parenting is democratic in nature, and it allows children a voice in what is happening in their own lives. We do this in our classrooms, where we have students and teachers have a discussion around understanding the need for ground rules, and then they formulate these ground rules together, along with the consequences of breaking these rules. This style encourages voice and choice from the child, as well as encourages independence. We do this also at the whole school level, where we have equal representation of students as we do parents and staff on discipline committees. When students or children are in an atmosphere of emotional openness and are a part of deciding what happens in their own lives and what is best for them, it elevates their confidence. So these are simple things a positive parent does. Instead of highlighting and nagging negative behavior, reinforce and acknowledge positive behavior, even very small things like setting the table. A positive parent has conversations with their child rather than gives lectures or sermons. In the conversation, a positive parent allows the child to lead the conversation. A positive parent shows the child care through verbal and physical interaction. A positive parent style assists children to set their own goals that work for both the child and the parent and allows choice. For example, you have the choice between wearing your helmet and riding your bicycle, or playing an indoor game that does not need you to wear a helmet. Research shows that positive parenting styles produce children who do better academically because they want to, not because they have to. And it also tends to lead to children who have higher expectations of themselves, and also children who are kinder and less aggressive and less likely to smoke or do drugs. The benefit of a positive parenting style is for the parent as well. More independent children, more cooperative children, more self-disciplined children, and children with more initiative. Authoritative parenting, strict parenting, is the opposite of this. The parent lays down all the rules, punishes if these rules are not met. This is a dictator style of parenting and does not trust that children know how to make choices that are best for them. A child who becomes an adult who has experienced this style of parenting, strict parenting, can be an adult who only behaves positively in the presence of fear, threat, or punishment. An example of this is an Indian adult who spits freely in India but refrains when he goes to Singapore. Why? Because of the fines. Permissive parenting is simply allowing a child to do as he or she pleases. Very few rules or very few expectations from you. These parents often do things for their children and don't view their children as mature or capable enough to carry out tasks or responsibilities that require self-control. They rarely control or regulate their children's behavior, so their children are less aware of the limits of acceptable behavior. These children grow into adults with poor impulse control and more behavioral problems than the other children. When facing any situation that causes stress, they are more likely to turn to the use of aggression. If you have not used positive authoritative parenting as a technique so far, it is not simply something you turn on like a tap and get results overnight. It will take time for you and your child to adjust to this, but this is the right time and place to get started. And I promise you, it is well worth it.